Good morning, good afternoon. Hey, guys of the Bigs. It's a day late, but, as I said last week, I was working quite a bit the last 3 days. And yesterday I was just dead tired. I worked 16 hours over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every day. And yeah, it was just a mess. In any event, I wanted to get this up before too much of week 8 got started. We're already a day into it. So let's get week 7 taken care of and see what happened in the bigs. Get this thing started. We had number 1 team in the league, Stanton Room only James McCloskey, taking on the number 8 team at the time, Frank Bucco, and James wins by a score of 13-7. Close categories this week for them. James won by 1 homer and 1 save. And Frank won by 2 doubles, a triple, and an error. They tied with 40 RBIs apiece. For James, he went 10 for 35 on his bench. That's a 286 batting average, 5 runs, a double, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, and 9 strikeouts. The one big thing that happened this week, which obviously just went down on Monday, they negotiated a trade where Jonathan Schoop and Julio Teheran got traded for Jose Ramirez. I find that interesting since Jonathan Schoop was on James's bench and went 3 for 5 with 2 homers. James hasn't been playing Jonathan Schoop much, mostly because he has Gene Segura and Jonathan Villar to set up his second and shortstop positions. But Jose Ramirez, locks down his third base position where Yandy Diaz, though having a great season thus far, whether or not you believe in him is what boils down to it on James's half. James led this thing basically the whole way through. I know Tuesday it was 10-8, and then after that, like I said, it's kind of a blur. I got a ton of work going on, but it does end up 13-7. James is doing a really solid job streaming pitchers. He picked up Lance Lynn for a good start. Got a good start out of Julio Teheran before he traded him. He only picked up Teheran recently. Beginning of the month. It was only 2 weeks ago, and then he turns around and trades him, which is pretty good for him. A good start of Kenta Maeda before he hit the DL. The 1 save comes from Ty Buttrey. For Frank, he went 10 for 37. That's a 270 batting average. 3 runs, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 9 strikeouts on his bench. But the pitching stats is what really hurt Frank this week. He pitched to a 6.03 ERA and a 1.37 WHIP. The one thing that sticks out to me, and I don't know what I have to do to make you guys realize this, but he fucking streamed Ivan Nova. What was it, like 3 weeks ago? I went on a fucking rant about him. Gave him 3 innings, a loss, 3 homers, 4 walks, a strikeout, a 24 ERA, and a 4 WHIP. Frank, I get it, man. He had a couple of good starts since my rant. 7 innings against Cleveland, 6 innings against Toronto, like an earned run apiece. 8 strikeouts over 13 innings. Like, I get it. It was okay. But there again, Cleveland still has a kind of shit lineup. Toronto doesn't have a good lineup outside of, like, Vlad, who was struggling. And you get Toronto again. Like, you already got the good start out of him against Toronto. So you decided to roll the dice and do it at home. And he gets that terrible start. I don't get it. It's a fucking terrible idea. And as soon as I saw you pick him up, I'm like, this is what my rant's going to be on. The fucking guy is awful. He's got an ERA north of 7, an ERA, a WHIP of 1.8, and he only has 32 strikeouts over 47 innings. That is like, what, 6 strikeouts an inning? Or 6 strikeouts every 9? Like, that's disgusting. And he doesn't deserve to be rostered. He doesn't deserve to be streamed. He's bad. Stop it. Everybody, fucking stop it with Ivan Nova. Frank's roster moves. He dropped Mike Foltynewicz he held out that long for Mike Foltynewicz. He ends up being kind of garbage when he comes back. The Braves have a lot of options. I don't blame you. He was picked up immediately because of his upside. I see that. You drop Martin Perez for a middle reliever. I don't know that middle reliever gave you like an inning. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bad pitching week for Frank. Made some poor streaming decisions. Otherwise, I mean, he got a really nice start out of Frankie Montas against Detroit. Otherwise, it's kind of not very good. Key players for this week. For James, Byron Buxton went the fuck off. 269 batting average with 345 on base, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 6 runs scored, and a double, 3 walks and 7 strikeouts. That is as good a line as you can expect from the former number 1 overall prospect that definitely came into this season with a lot of people down on him because of the last season. Cody Bellinger again continues to rake, 389 batting average, 476 on base, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 5 runs scored, and a double. And CJ Cron, another guy who just went the fuck off this week, 321 average, 406 on base, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 8 runs scored, and a double, 3 walks and 9 strikeouts. Honorable mention to Joey Gallo's week as well. He had a really good week with 5 doubles. Pitching wise, man, is Hyun-Jin Ryu like the breakout pitcher this year? He goes another 7 innings of shutout ball, 5 strikeouts and a walk. He hasn't given up a run in his last 24 plus innings. In fact, if we go all the way back to the last time he gave up an earned run, which was back against San Francisco on May the 1st, it was in the first inning he gave up that run. So 7 shutout there, 9, 8, and 7. That's a lot of fucking continuous shutout innings. You know, the guy hasn't had a not quality start since April the 20th. So that's 1, 2, 3. That's 5 straight of 7 or more with 2 or less earned runs. I mean, the guy's absolutely on fire. Charlie Morton was another good one for James this week. 2-start week. He goes 10 innings, 2.70 ERA with 11 strikeouts. And Ty Buttrey, again, got the only save, which was a category he won 1-0. So props to him there. For Frank, Gerard Dyson had a good week for him. A 333 batting average, 556 on base, with 3 steals and 5 runs scored. Frank won steals by 2. So that's certainly the deciding factor there. Adam Morgan gave him a couple of good 4 quality relief appearances, despite a 4.91 ERA. He did get a win. I think he gave up like 1 3-run homer. There was a 2-run homer on the 16th. And Austin Riley, the prospect in Atlanta, with Frank being a Braves fan, I'm not surprised to see this kid on his roster. Kids come out of the gate extremely hot, you know, and then with a 421 batting average, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and 4 runs scored this week. Absolutely insane. I don't know why I put Adam Morgan in the middle of his batters. Just consider me sleep deprived. Carlos Correa was the other batter. 280 batting average, 321 on base, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 4 runs, a double, a triple. You know, he won. I think he won. He did win triples, 1-0. So there's the triple that he got. Pitching wise, again, Frankie Montas had a good week, 8 2/3, 10 strikeouts. Don't quite 2 earned run. Don't quite know why they didn't let him finish this out, considering it was 8 2/3. He was at 109 pitches. I mean, I guess they felt like Luke Trevino had to close us out in a 7-2 ball game. Adam Morgan, I mentioned, and Junior Guerra gave him 3 relief appearances. They weren't very good, but when you pitch to a 6.03 ERA, there aren't going to be a whole lot of good ERAs on your staff. He did win relief appearances, so that's why I chose those 2 guys with 7 relief appearances between them. James dominated this matchup. He wins every pitching category except for relief appearances. And his offense, though they had what would be called a down week as far as categories winning is concerned, he'd have dominated just about everybody in the league. And he just added Jose Ramirez. A 1.91 ERA over 66 innings. That's disgusting. 5 wins, 72 strikeouts over that time. It's more than a strikeout an inning. Just a really great week from the number one team, and he maintains that lead. For Frank, he falls to 11th overall after being in the top 5 early this season. I think the shuffling of his roster is, if you're not patient and you don't hang on to the guys that you believe in, and you keep changing your mind on so many guys, you end up with a roster of like this, where on paper it looks good, but if it's not performing, and you trade off guys who aren't performing, eventually they're going to turn around. Like, that just is what it is, I don't know. For Frank, I don't know what he's got to do, but he keeps making a ton of roster moves, keeps trading off a ton of decent guys. The other trade I'll get to later on when I cover I think it was Jason's team. Yeah. We'll see how Frank goes the rest of the season, but I just don't see how making this many roster moves and not getting the results is indicative of an insightful manager. We move on. We move to my team. Feast or famine against Mike Sherman's Kirchhoff Passover. I lost 12-9, but to be honest, I feel like that's a win. I was down in this matchup. I think it was 15-5 going into the weekend. And, with everything I had going on, I was just like, if I can get it to like 12-7, I'd be happy. To finish 12-9, and I saw on Sunday it was at 11-10. Batting average was incredibly close. So to see it 12-9, I'm certainly happy with that. It's not a blowout loss. I'll take it. Close categories this week. Mike won by 2 RBIs, an error, .002 batting average, and a save. I won by 1 stolen base, 2 walks, and .03 whip. On my bench, I went 7 for 29, which was 241 batting average, 7 runs, 2 doubles, homer, 3 RBIs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. The big thing that upset me, especially considering the way the week ended, Jorge Alfaro was on my bench on Friday. He went 2 for 4 with a 3-run homer. He was facing Jake DeGrom, so I know why I benched him. And Astudillo went 1 for 3 with an RBI, so I'm not too upset about it. But to see 3 RBIs on my bench and to lose by 2 RBIs is pretty disappointing. I don't think I had too many big moves. I mean, Pablo Lopez was fantastic for me in the start. I streamed him. I'm actually hanging on to him again. Considering last week I started him and he was one of the 4 terrible starts I had, where he gave up 10 runs in 3 innings. To see him bounce back the way he did with 7 shutout innings against the Mets is fucking awesome to see. The kid's incredibly talented. The Marlins have an incredibly talented rotation. They're just not going to get very much run support this year because their offense is abysmal. I also streamed Trevor Richards, who I drafted this year. He actually gave me a win against the Mets as well. I think it was the day beforehand. Yeah, it was the day before the Pablo Lopez start. So to see the Mets get swept, but get a good get 2 good starts out of it, I'll take it, despite the fact that I'm a Mets fan. For Sherman, he went 4 for 19 on his bench. It's a 211 batting average, 3 runs, 3 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and an error. He dropped Danny Santana, which I find interesting, because Danny Santana has been incredibly hot and hitting really well for him. It's just that he doesn't play every day, and I understand that you want to have guys who play every day on your roster. But, I don't see how you can't get this guy into the lineup. He's hitting 320 on the season. For the week, he hit 571 for him. To drop him for a middle reliever like Brian Shaw, I, I don't know. He did pick up Willie Calhoun, though, who's the other top prospect for the Rangers, and he's done fantastic for him. Unfortunately, he lost Miguel Andujar for the season, which is really disappointing considering how much stock people put into Andujar coming into the year. Key players for the week for Mike, who won. Gleyber Torres had a great week, 350 batting average, 381 on base, 3 homers, 4 RBIs, 4 runs, and a double. Ronald Acuna, his number 1 overall pick, had a great week, 292 average, 393 on base, a homer, 6 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a double, and 2 steals. And Luke Voit came to play this week, 368 average, 455 on base, a homer, 4 RBIs, 2 doubles, 2 runs, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. The thing about Luke Voit is week to week, he's Jekyll and Hyde. Like he's only hitting 256 on the season, but he has a ton of homers and RBIs. Like he's either going to go off or he's going to be ice cold. And to have Pete Alonso and Luke Voit on this team, Pete Alonso is really cold right now, despite the 2 homers this week and a homer last night. He's cold now. Voigt's hot. It's going to be a balancing act to really play those two, but I'd certainly like to have that problem. Pitching-wise, for Mike, Carlos Carrasco gave him another great start, 7 innings, 6 strikeouts, shutout ball against the White Sox. Not sure whether that was that might have been the Ivan Nova start. No, it was the Manny Banuelos start, who, Manny Banuelos has had a couple of good starts too, but he's up and down as well. Luke Jackson, the closer in Atlanta, got him 2 saves and 3 relief appearances. To see that bullpen self-destruct the way it has with Arodys Vizcaíno and AJ Minter going down, Luke Jackson has kind of solidified that back end of their bullpen. 6 saves in his last, looks like 7 appearances or 8 appearances, and a 2.31 ERA with 30 strikeouts and 23 innings. That's a really, really solid guy to find on the waiver wire. And I hate to say it, but Clayton Kershaw might be the steal of the draft. We know he was injured coming into the season, but he's had some really great starts since coming back on April the 15th. It's not a single outing has gone less than 6 innings, and all but one of them are quality starts. That's all you can ask for a guy that was drafted, in the 7th round. That could be an ace in disguise. And I said coming out of the draft that it was one of the few pitching staffs that I actually liked between Marquez, Kershaw, Carrasco, Clevinger. To see Clevinger on the DL for this long is going to suck, but he's going to get him back at some point. For me, Jorge Polanco had a ridiculous week, 433 batting average, 469 on base, 6 runs, a triple, a homer, 4 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. With Lindor and Baez both having shortstop eligibility, Polanco's basically been my utility guy, and he's been hitting amazing. I don't understand why somebody's not jumping at the opportunity to take him off my hands for a pitcher. Do people not believe that this is real? Like, he's hitting 335 on the season. He's got like nine triples or something. Like, it's ridiculous. Francisco Lindor was another one, 348 average, 429 on base, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 doubles, 5 runs, 2 steals, 3 walks. When he fell to me in the draft in the 2nd round, I didn't want to have to make that decision. Like, it wasn't part of my game plan coming into the season. And I was hoping that I would get him back like right at the start of the season. I had to wait a little bit, but he's been everything I could ask for with 6 homers and 5 steals in 20 games. And Yoan Moncada has just been lights out this season. 412 average, 474 on base this week, 4 runs, a double, a triple, 2 homers, and 3 RBIs. He strikes out a ton, and I knew that coming into the season when I drafted him, in the 11th round. But it looks like he might be putting this all together now. He's got a 284 average, 9 homers, 29 RBIs, and 4 steals for the season. If he could go 30 homers and 15 steals. That'll be a ridiculous season, and I'll take it. Pitching-wise, again, I mentioned Pablo Lopez, 7 shutout innings against the Mets with 7 strikeouts. Eduardo Rodriguez, though the line doesn't look as good as it should, his start was actually really good. It was 6 innings, 10 strikeouts. They probably should have pulled him after 6 because he went out for the 7th and gave up like 2 singles or whatever, and he had only given up 2 runs at that point. And he went back out there for the 7th, gave up 2 singles, and then Matt Barnes came in and decided just to let everybody score. So he ends up with 5 earned runs across that time, but like it shouldn't look that bad because Matt Barnes is not, Matt Barnes has fucking let him down. And Joe Musgrove bounces back from an awful start last week. Joe Musgrove had a 2-start week this week against Arizona and San Diego. It was 13 1/3 innings from both of them. 2 wins, 9 strikeouts, a 2.03 ERA, and a .60 WHIP. After the terrible 2 starts that he had against Oakland and St. Louis, respectively, he's bounced back in a huge way. His ERA is back to 3.67. I thought coming into the season this kid could be the breakout star of Pittsburgh. So I'm hoping that he stays that way, and I get a great number 3 starter out of him. I fell to 3rd place after this loss. Mike is in 13th, so he stays where he's at. And we move on to Mike Haber, Teoscar named Desire, and Jimmy Dunlap, JD17. He's back to that name. This, on paper, looked like the matchup of the week. It was number 3 versus number 4. Mike handily won this one, 12-6. But for most of the week, it looked like Jimmy was leading the charge. Up until Wednesday, he was up 10-7. So to see it spin around like that, 12-6, if I had more time on my hands, I would have delved into why it happened. But I'm sure somebody could help me out with that. On Mike's bench, he went 14 for 51. That's a .275 batting average. 7 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 8 RBIs, 3 walks, and 16 strikeouts. Only made 4 roster moves. They were all for pitchers. Those 4 pitchers that he dropped were Griffin Canning, Jeremy Hellickson, and John Means. He dropped Charlie Tilton, who's an outfielder for Hellickson, so he just streamed the Hellickson start, which was 5 earned over 5 innings. Not a good one. The big thing was on Sunday. Mike left 3 homers and 4 RBIs on his bench, which hurts considering he lost home runs by 3. So those 3 homers would have been absolutely enormous for him. I mean, you can't fault him. He won the week and he doubled up Jimmy, so you can't get too mad at it. For Jimmy, he went 10 for 32, which is a .313 batting average. 6 runs, 2 homers, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 5 strikeouts. The thing about Jimmy's week is he only hit .218. He had a ton of walks. He won walks by 10. It just wasn't enough to win on base percentage because his team, like I said, only hit .218. Where he got his hits, they were solid because he had 10 homers of his 41 hits for the week, but there just wasn't enough, substance behind the power. Moves wise, I don't see anything substantial. Lot of relief chasing, it looks like, which he lost relief appearances. And they tied in saves. So, key players for the week. Mike had Paul DeYoung go off again. This guy's been red hot. He's batting .318 for the week, 407 on base, a homer and 7 RBIs with a steal, 4 runs and 2 doubles with 4 walks. Cesar Hernandez had a good week, .389 average, 450 on base, a homer, 3 RBIs, 3 doubles, 3 runs scored, 2 walks and 2 strikeouts. Really unsung good player in the back end of the Philly lineup. He's usually batting 6th or 7th in that lineup, considering how stout it is. but he's hitting 310. Like, I don't see why he's hitting toward the back end of the lineup when Andrew McCutchen is batting leadoff for them. Like, this should be their leadoff hitter. And Edwin Encarnacion had a good week. Another guy who's going to be either lights out or ice cold. 391 average, a 440 on base this week, 4 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 5 RBIs. For a Seattle team that started off incredibly hot, they've absolutely just fallen off a cliff lately. But Edwin seems to not be having that early season slump that he always goes through. He's already got 13 homers, well on his way to another 30-homer season. I could see him hitting 35 this year very easily. Pitching-wise for Mike Soroka. Mike Soroka had a good week. Good outing, I should say. He went 7 innings against St. Louis, shutout ball. The kid's been absolutely amazing. He's got a 101 ERA and an 87 whip. He hasn't given up more than 1 run in any of his starts since coming up. He's looks like 5-1 on the season. The only thing you would call a poor start would be his second start at Cincinnati. He went 5 2/3 with a win and 7 strikeouts, and he gave up 1 earned. He didn't get a quality start there. This guy is a quality start machine somehow, and to have him be added April 23rd, which was right before that start in Cincinnati, is incredible. The first person to add him though was right before his first start against Arizona, which he lost, and it's his only loss of the season. That was Frank. And Frank dropped him the next day. Go figure. Moving on, we move to Jack Flaherty, who's had a disappointing season so far this year. But this week he had 2 solid starts, both 6 innings at Atlanta and at Texas. He pitched to a 4.19 ERA on the season, which again is a little disappointing for a guy that you drafted as high as you did with a 5th-round pick. He had 11 strikeouts over the 12 innings, 3.75 ERA and a 1.17 WHIP. He got a win. The 7 walks is what's really disappointing, though. And finally, Aaron Nola seems to be turning it around. He had 2 starts this week. I'm not counting the one in Milwaukee or the one at home against Milwaukee because Milwaukee's lineup is ridiculous. But the start against Colorado at home, Colorado's lineup is very good. They're much better in Colorado, but Philadelphia is a hitter's park as well. And to see Nola go 6 innings with 12 strikeouts and only 1 earned, that's the kind of stuff you want from a guy you drafted as your ace in the 2nd round. For Jimmy, Gary Sanchez had a good week for him. 313 average, 389 on base, a triple, a homer, an RBI, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. The triple is the big thing because he won that 1-0. So, and to see Gary Sanchez get a triple, that might be the only one he hits all year. It was at home against Tampa, so I'm not sure where he hit the ball to get him the triple. I'd love to see that. Max Kepler had a good week for him. 238 batting average. You don't like to see that, but again, with a team that only hit 218 on the week. 360 on base. He had a homer and 4 RBIs, 5 runs, and a double. And finally, Alex Bregman. 217 average. Again, not very good, but 379 on base with 6 walks, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, and 7 runs scored. Pitching-wise for Jimmy, it was Danny Duffy. Danny Duffy had a good week for him. If I can find, there he is. It was a 2-start week. It was 11 innings, 11 strikeouts, 2 wins. It was at home against Texas and then at the Angels. It was a 4.09 ERA, but the big start was against the Angels. It was only 1 earned run over 6. Zach Greinke gave him a good week. 7 2/3, a win, 5 strikeouts. That start was against Pittsburgh at home. And finally, Mike Minor. Mike Minor might be another one of those guys that's having a breakout season finally. Former top prospect for the Braves, obviously. He's bounced around the league quite a bit. This week he gets 11 strikeouts, at home against Seattle in over 6 innings. He's pitched to a 2.64 ERA. Just a ridiculous, and he's bounced around this league as well. He's been on 4 different teams after being drafted by Andy Soler-Greco. Like I said, this week was a big turnaround for Haber. He trailed early and takes the week down and improves to 2nd overall in the league. For Jimmy, he falls to 5th, still well within striking distance, heading back to the top. We'll see how things go for him the rest of the season. We move on. We move on to Angels in the Trout Field, Bobby Russo against Kikuchi Kuchi-Ku, Barry Nisman. It was number 5 versus number 10 coming into the week. Bobby gets the win 13-8. And the close categories, Bobby wins by 2 saves and a walk given up by a pitcher. Barry won by a triple, a win, a loss, and 2 relief appearances. For Bobby, he went 13 for 49 on his bench, which is a 266 batting average, 4 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 9 RBI, 4 walks, and 14 strikeouts. He trailed a lot. He trailed big on Thursday. He was down 12-5. So to see it again flip 13-8 the way it did, it's about the 3rd matchup in a row that I've talked about between mine, the last one, and this one, where there was a huge gap early in the week, and it flipped. Mine didn't flip all the way. Mine certainly went from 15-5 down to 12-9, but the other 2 completely flipped in the other direction, and that's a testament to those managers. It was 3 matchups. Well, it was 2 matchups where it was a team at the top of the standings against a team toward the bottom of the standings, and then the 3rd matchup was 2 guys at the top. For Bobby, he missed a Steve Cishek save that was on his bench with Chad Green's game being postponed on Tuesday, and missed a Chad Green relief appearance on Friday. Those 2 alone would have tied him for relief appearances. It doesn't hurt him in the saves department, though. Lorenzo Cain went 5 for 6 on Monday, which contributed to him winning batting average with a 307 average. Overall, not a whole lot on Bobby's team to point to and say, oh, that's where you lost anything, because a lot of the offensive categories he carried. Only 2 moves, nothing egregious. He looks like he streamed a Trent Thornton start, which is what it is. For Barry, he went 16 for 63 on the bench, which is a 254 batting average. 8 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 steals, 4 walks, 16 strikeouts, and an error. Barry had 8 steals this week, and to have 3 more on his bench, that's pretty fucking ridiculous. His team was just swiping bags at a ridiculous pace. He again adds Phillip Ervin. I don't know who Phillip Ervin is. I still don't know why this kid is why you have this man crush on him. I would love for you to explain it to me. What is it about Phillip Ervin that you like so much, Barry? I've seen, you've added and dropped him like 3 times already. It doesn't look like he's getting playing time in an outfield that's incredibly crowded in Cincinnati. I'd love to know what it is. I'd love to hear it. Key players for the week for Bobby. Josh Bell went the fuck off again. 407 average, 484 on base, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 6 runs scored, and a double. He had two homer and 4 RBI games this week. The guy is definitely living up to the prospect pedigree and that 20 homer season we saw 2 years ago. He's already got 14 on the year, so he's well on his way to a 25 homer season. Lorenzo Cain had a great week as well. He hit 393 on the week, 452 on base percentage, 6 runs, 5 doubles, 2 RBI, 2 steals, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And Mike Trout doing Mike Trout things, 409 average, 536 on base percentage, a homer, 2 RBIs, and a steal, 5 runs, a double, and 4 walks. Pitching-wise, Noah Syndergaard has another great week. 15 innings on a 2-start week at Washington and at Miami. He goes 1-1 because He lost 3-0 to Miami on the 19th. That was the Sandy Alcantara complete game shutout game, which I'll get to later on. But 9 strikeouts over 11 innings, over 15 innings, a 2.40 ERA, a 0.73 WHIP. It's a great week from Syndergaard, and you'd figure that most of the time when he goes 7 innings and only gives up, 2 earned, you're going to win that game. Max Fried had a good start for him, 6 shutout innings. That one was against Milwaukee, which is a ridiculous lineup. Max Fried's another one in Atlanta that has been really good. 2.86 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP for the season. Bobby grabbed him early and has held on to him pretty tightly. Finally, Garrett Cole, 5 innings, 7 strikeouts. The start was at Boston. 5 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. You can't beat that. For Uncle Barry, it was Starling Marte leading the charge at 310 average, 5 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, and a steal. He won triples, 1-0, so that's why I gave it to Starling Marte with the triple. He also had a good week nonetheless. Xander Bogaerts, 389 average, 500 on base percentage with a steal, 2 RBIs, 3 doubles, and 2 runs scored. 4 walks to 1 strikeout. You love to see that from a young kid. 4 walks to 1 strikeout for a week. And Tommy La Stella, I've now hit more home runs this season than I had in my entire career previously. La Stella, another great week. 435 average, 458 on base percentage, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 4 runs scored. It's no surprise that this kid is having a breakout year. He's like 31 now. He's having a breakout season, hitting in front of Mike Trout. Pitching-wise for Barry, Brandon Woodruff had a good week, 14 innings, 11 strikeouts, 2 earned runs in that time. The starts were at Philly and at Atlanta. Again, only 2 solo homers over the 2 starts. And he got a win because it looks like they lost. He didn't qualify. Or they won the game late in Atlanta. Yusei Kikuchi had a 2-start week as well, 12 innings. Both starts went 6. They were at home both times against Oakland and against Minnesota. 11 strikeouts over the 12 innings, 3 ERA with a 1.17 WHIP. And Blake Parker got him a save over 2 relief appearances. He did win relief appearances, so I gave it to Blake Parker since he had more than 1 shutout appearance. Ryan Presley also had 3 shutout appearances with 5 strikeouts. Overall, again, the comeback from Bobby is huge. He moves to 4th overall. Uncle Barry falls from 10th to 12th. And we move on to what may be the matchup of the week. We met on Pinder. I love that name. Ben Nisman went up against Andy Solar Greco. They were number 6 and number 9, respectively. And Ben gets the win 11-9. Close categories this week for Ben. He won by 1 triple. He won by 1 walk. He won by 1 home run given up by a pitcher, 2 walks given up by a pitcher. For Andy, it was 2 runs. It was 0.05 ERA and a 0.1 WHIP. And they tied nowhere. Ben had a shutout week on his bench. He went 0 for 6 with a walk. That's as good as you can ask for. Like if you're playing a full lineup every day with nothing on your bench, and the 1 or 2 times you have guys on your bench, they go 0 for, you can't beat that. It's the first time I've seen it this week. Congratulations, Benji. Benji did have an interesting week as far as moves are concerned. He was kind of all over the place and lost Trey Mancini, so he had to add Mancini back, and that cost him another roster move. He had 9 roster moves by Tuesday, and he texted me, and he's like, I can't believe what I'm doing to myself here. But with one of his 3 final roster moves, he added Brandon Crawford, who got him a triple, and that's incredibly lucky because he won triples 1-0. to get that one category is huge. For Andy, he went 6 for 29 on his bench, which is a 207 batting average, 2 runs, 4 RBIs, a walk, 12 strikeouts. He only had one roster move, picking up Oscar Mercado, the young prospect out of Cleveland. Cleveland needs as much offense as they can get. They especially need it in the outfield. So pulling up Oscar Mercado is a good idea for them. I hope it works out. Otherwise, unfortunately, Ben dropped Chad Pinder, so he's thinking about changing his team name. Please don't. It's a great name. Key players this week. Benji had Carlos Santana have a good week. He hit .333 with 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 481 on base percentage due to 6 walks, 5 runs, 2 doubles, and only 2 strikeouts. Trey Mancini, who apparently was expendable at one point, Benji, 217 average, 250 on base percentage. That hurts. 8 strikeouts also hurts, but 3 homers and 5 RBIs. When you win homers and RBIs is what really counts there. 5 runs scored. And Brandon Crawford again with that triple. The only game he played for him, a .333 average, a run, a triple, and 2 RBIs. If you're going to stream a batter, that's what you're looking for. Pitching wise, Masahiro Tanaka had a good week. 6 innings, shutout ball, 6 strikeouts. It was against Tampa. It helped put the Yankees in first place despite all of the injuries that they've had. Aroldis Chapman had a good week as well. 3 relief appearances, 2 saves, 6 strikeouts. And Kenley Jansen also had 2 relief appearances, 2 saves, and 3 strikeouts. Again, Ben's bullpen is sick and disgusting, and I don't think he should ever lose saves or relief appearances. He's locking down those two categories, which is going to keep his ERA at whip low, because if he meets the innings minimum, he can just sort of ride that bullpen, and that's a great asset to have. For Andy, it was Adalberto Mondesi leading the charge, 348 average, 385 on base percentage. 4 RBIs, 4 steals, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. The 4 steals is important because he won steals 5-0. Again, with a team, I've said it before, I'll say it again. A team with Adalberto Mondesi on it should not lose steals any week unless he's not playing. He's got 17 steals already, well on his way to 40. I think the only team that he's going to run into is like Uncle Barry if he has a week like he did this past week, where he had like 8 steals. Ryan Braun had a good week as well. Braun went 381 average, 480 on base percentage, a homer and 7 RBIs and 7 runs scored. Andy 1 runs scored by 2. So to see 7 runs scored from Ryan Braun, 5 more from Oscar Mercado. It's a great week to have. Nomar Mazara is the final one I'll highlight. 350 average, 417 on base, 2 runs, 2 doubles, an RBI, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Pitching wise, it's Patrick Corbin leading the way. 8 innings, 1 earned run. Of course, the start was against my Mets. 11 strikeouts. Corbin has owned the Mets since coming to Washington last night, notwithstanding. And he's been, just as good as expected in Washington as he was last year in Arizona. Chris Bassett was a good start for him, too. 8 innings, shutout ball, 7 strikeouts, and a win again in Detroit. The bullpen, could have let him down if the offense didn't score 17 runs, because he went 8. And then Aaron Brooks came in and decided to give up 3 runs because that's the thing that happens. And finally, Domingo Germán, who started off the season just basically filling in for CC Sabathia while he was on the DL, has turned into arguably their best pitcher this year. 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 earned, 1 walk, and a win in the doubleheader against Baltimore. Sick. The guy's been great. Again, a really close matchup between these two. Ben gets the win and yet somehow still falls to 7th. Andy stays at 9th. These guys are both right around 500. I mean, Ben's 6 games over, Andy's 10 games under. But I mean, that can be made up in a week. So these guys are hovering right on the outside of the playoff picture, which is still incredibly hazy. It's only May. But I could see both of these guys making a run with both their rosters. We move on. Witness protection. Jason Ashby gives another pounding to Ari Nisman. Ari coming off the win over me last week, could have started to put his season together here if he gets a win over Jason. Unfortunately, it's just another 9 category loss. Close categories this week. Jason wins by a triple, 2 walks, 2 saves, and 2 relief appearances. Ari wins by a double, 2 strikeouts, and 2 home runs given up by a pitcher. For Jason on his bench, he went 5 for 38, which I did not calculate apparently. It's a 132 batting average, 2 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Nothing egregious. In fact, the vast majority of it is, 0 for 7s, 0 for 5s on his bench. He had one day where he had a double and an RBI. Moves-wise, he dropped Wilmer Flores, and that's kind of surprising because Wilmer Flores was hot. He still doesn't play every day, which is kind of surprising. But he's still kind of filling into that Mets role with the Diamondbacks that he's had. He picked up Nicky Lopez, the prospect for the Royals. He had a decent week on Jason's roster. He dropped Sir Anthony Dominguez, who has been disappointing. You thought this guy had the chance to be the closer in Philly. Instead, he's pitched to an ERA north of 5. He dropped Dansby Swanson, who was hot this year. I guess that's because of the Nicky Lopez ad. And he picked up Justin Upton for a DL stash. And then the final one is the trade of Marco Gonzalez to Hector Neris. I understand he wanted to get saves. I know that deal initially started off involving Max Scherzer. He came to me asking for advice on the trade. And I told him, I said, Max Scherzer does have a ton of value. And if you're able to pawn him off and you feel confident about your team without him, great. But that's your first round pick. You've got to get value for it. The deal, I don't remember, the exact particulars of how it was. It was an 8-player deal. I ended up, the thing is with Jason's team, had Tyler Glasnow not gone down with this arm thing that he's got going on, he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. I just don't see how you can move Max Scherzer at that point. If he's healthy and pitching that way, and Jose Quintana and Yu Darvish and Aaron Sanchez, if the rest of the rotation is as it should be, I could see you pawning off Max Scherzer for some pieces. But Marco Gonzalez is a good piece to trade off in the middle of that rotation. He falls into the Quintana, Darvish, Sanchez sort of area where you've got a bunch of dudes all basically doing the same thing. Neris is apparently the closer in Philly, though at the time of the trade, he hadn't closed a game in like 8 days and hadn't gotten into a game in like 6 days or something. He had only been in once in the last 12. And since the trade, he's made 2 saves and gotten a win. So there you go. Another little aside, I did offer him Yohan Moncada and Shane Green for Scherzer because I'm still looking for a pitcher. # trade me a pitcher. For Ari, it's another disappointing week for Ari. On Tuesday, I watched his bench go 8 for 14, 4 runs, 4 homers, 8 RBIs, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Vlad Guerrero had his first 2 homers on the bench. Aledmus Diaz had a 3-run homer on his bench. Jake Bauers went 2 for 2 with a homer on his bench. And Jay Bruce and Ian Desmond went 0 for 7 with 7 strikeouts at first base and left field. Ouch. Overall, he went 19 for 57. That's a .333 batting average. 11 runs, 2 doubles, 7 homers, 15 RBIs, 8 walks, and 15 strikeouts. That is absolutely devastating. The 11 runs would have won him runs. The 2 doubles didn't matter because he already won that. The homers and RBIs he won. The 8 walks would have won him that category. Who knows? The 333 batting average could have won him that category as well. The walks certainly would have helped get him closer to on base. Ari put together a good pitching week, which has really been what's hurting him this season, and he was still beaten in the vast majority of the categories. He seems to have this love-hate or this enjoyment with rostering Ariel Jurado, who he picked up and dropped all in the week for Reynolds, Harvey, and Swanson, respectively. So, Dansby Swanson has switched teams in this matchup in this week alone. Key players this week for Jason, who won the week. Anthony Rendon is back to form. 435 average, 519 on base, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 8 runs, 4 doubles, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Wilson Contreras, 444 average, 500 on base, a homer, 5 RBIs, 2 doubles, a run, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And Nick Senzel, who came up for Cincinnati, is playing center most of the time for them. 280 average, 333 on base, 4 steals, which he won 6-1. So Nick Senzel wins him steals for the week. Pitching wise, Yu Darvish has a great outing for him. Yu Darvish can return to form, which he's just starting to. He had a good start against Cincinnati. 5 1/3. Looks like 3 earned. 2 earned and 11 strikeouts. He's starting to pick it up. He's going deeper into games. He's getting more strikeouts. Like, he's looking pretty solid. Hector Neris, again, got him the 2 saves. He won the saves 3-1, so that's the difference. And Ronaldo Lopez. I like Ronaldo Lopez. I think he's the guy to stream in Chicago. He's had 2 really good starts. This week was against Cleveland and Toronto. 7 2/3 against Cleveland with 6 strikeouts, 6 innings with 1 strikeout against Toronto, 1 earned run apiece. And he got 1 win out of the 2 because, again, the offense doesn't exactly come to life all the time. For Ari, Rougned Odor is a name I have not said yet this year. 280 batting average, 333 on base percentage, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. 2 errors, which sucks, but Rougned Odor is hitting 169 on the season, so to have a week like that is really promising and might finally kick him off toward better days. Charlie Blackmon had a good week, 217 average, you don't like to see, but 5 runs, 2 homers, 3 RBIs. And Vlad Guerrero Jr., the 2 homers notwithstanding on his bench, he hit another 2 homers for Ari with 5 RBIs, 3 runs, 2 walks, a strikeout, and an error. That kid is finally coming to life as well. He's only hitting 235, but if he can come to life for Ari here, that might be the jumpstart his team needs, because his team needs a jumpstart right now. He's 36 games under 500 in last place. He needs something here. Pitching wise, it's Walker Buehler, who had a good week. 6 innings despite a loss, 7 strikeouts, and 1 earned run. The start was at Cincinnati. The team lost 4-0. So, you can point to the offense and say, hey, I need some help here. Sam Dyson, 3 relief appearances of shutout ball, a win in 2 2/3. And Jose Urena, 6 innings and a loss, 1 earned run. The start was a 1-0 loss to Tampa. You point to the offense. Again, he pitches in Miami. The offense is garbage. And it was a bullpen game for Tampa with Ryan Stanek starting and Jalen Beeks following. Nobody gave up a run there. You just throw your palms to the sky at that point. Ari did have, again, a decent pitching week. Those were the 3 best. Dave Sclafani gave him a bad start. I just wonder at what point, rostering Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell and Dellin Betances and David Robertson. 3 relievers, none of which are playing, and a starter who isn't signed. Like, you've got 4 guys rostered who are eating up your DL spots and your NA spot. At what point do you decide, I kind of got to cut bait with these guys? None of them are close to coming back. Betances is barely throwing from 50 feet, or I'm sorry, from 90 feet. Robertson is shut down for the next 3 weeks visiting James Andrews. Kimbrell, again, is another 2 weeks from not having his draft pick attached to signing him. And then maybe he gets, he's going to get signed, but then does he come back immediately or does he have to go to the minors for a while? Same is true of Keuchel. Those 4 guys on a roster, it eats away at your flexibility and your ability to have guys on your bench. Ari remains in last place with the big loss. Jason jumps to 6th with the win. We move on to Ben's roommate's team against Josh Haber's Well, I'll Be Damned. James Santangelo gets the win this week, 11-7. Close categories this week. James won by a triple, and that's about it. Josh wins by 2 strikeouts and 1 relief appearance. They tied in home runs and saves, and the saves was 0. For James on his bench, he went 11 for 46. That's a .239 batting average, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 4 walks, 11 strikeouts, and an error. The big thing left on the bench this week for James was a 6-inning loss with 5 strikeouts and 4 earned from Arrieta. The 6 innings would have won him innings for the week. So for the first time, I point to a pitcher on your bench going, that's the one you should have started. The rest wouldn't have hurt him. The loss wouldn't have hurt him. The strikeouts, he was winning anyway. The walks would not have hurt him. The ERA jumping with the 4 earned runs wouldn't have hurt him. The whip wouldn't have hurt him. It's the innings there. They tied in wins as well. So, I mean, you gotta kind of hope that Philly can get Arrieta a win there. No moves from James this week. He hasn't made a roster move since the 11th, which is 10 days ago. Little questionable there. For Mr. Haber, again, it's the ongoing Kurt Suzuki bullshit. He went 13 for 42 on his bench. It's a .310 batting average, 5 runs, a double, 3 RBIs, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts, and 2 errors. Kurt Suzuki went 3 for 4 with a double and 2 RBIs on his bench on Thursday. Yan Gomes was in the lineup not playing. I don't understand it. I don't understand how that happens. He made a few roster moves. Most of them were for relievers or streaming starters. Nothing too exciting there. Pitching-wise, he had an awful week, Josh did. A 6.20 ERA, a 1.58 whip, 6 losses. Offensively, they both were pretty poor. 239 batting average gets the win over 213 and a 335 on base percentage. Key players for the week for Mr. Santangelo. It's Christian Yelich again. It's 259 batting average, 394 on base, 3 homers, 4 RBIs, 7 runs, 2 doubles, 2 steals, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts. The guy's on pace for another MVP season. He's got 19 homers and 9 steals, and it's fucking 20th of May. Like, it's ridiculous. Mike Moustakas had a good week as well. 259 average, 333 on base percentage, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 5 runs, a double, stolen base, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And Freddie Freeman. Where did he go? Where's Freddie? Did he not have Freddie Freeman on? Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong. Jose Iglesias. Josh has Freddie Freeman. Can you tell I'm sleep deprived yet? Jose Iglesias. 375 average, a homer, 2 RBIs, a double, a run scored. Shout out to Yasmani Grandal as well, who had 8 RBIs and a triple for James's team. For Josh, it was Marcelo Ozuna. 208 average, 296 on base percentage. That sucks, but a 2 homer, 6 RBI week with 4 runs. That's good to see. Bryce Harper finally coming to life. A 269 average, 345 on base, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 doubles, 3 runs scored. The guy's only hitting 229, and that was the fear you took when you drafted Harper. You knew the power numbers were going to be there. You knew the RBIs were going to be there in a good lineup at Philly, but is he going to hit for average? Drafting him as high as you are, he's basically Joey Gallo this year, without as much power. It's part of the reason that Josh is toward the bottom of the standings. Freddie Freeman led the charge for him, 391 average, 440 on base percentage, 4 homers, 6 RBIs, 6 runs scored, double with 2 walks and 4 strikeouts. One big thing is Drupal Cabrera. He homered twice last night, but I think he only had 1 hit all week last week because he hit 053 with a 143 on base percentage. That's disgusting. You can't have that guy in your lineup. You just can't. And with Nico Goodrum riding the bench with shortstop eligibility, I'm willing to trade you Jorge Polanco. Just saying. You got to find a way to get the guy out of the lineup when he's hitting that poorly. And again, the Yan Gomes, Kurt Suzuki thing. Yan Gomes did not get a hit for him all week. And Kurt Suzuki had a fairly good week when he played. He played 3 times last week. Every time he got a hit. He's hitting 274 with 5 homers and 17 RBIs on the season. Yan Gomes, 228, 2-12. It's clear who you're supposed to play. You're supposed to play the guy who's playing every day. For James, he improves to 8th with the win. Josh remains at 15th. Neither of these guys made very many roster moves, like I said. It'll be interesting going forward to see how each of them manages. We move on. Jose told a story, which is Chris Levy, against Nick Homan, the Beavers. Number 12 versus number 14 coming into the week. Chris gets the win 13-8 close categories. A triple for Chris, a steal, 2 saves, and 2 homers given up by a pitcher. For Nick, he wins by a walk, a loss, and a relief appearance. They tied in complete games. And this is where I'm going to get back on my horse about rained out complete games. I'm just going to jump right into it right now. Shane Bieber for Nick had one of the best starts of the season. A complete game, shutout, 15 strikeouts. 15 strikeouts over fucking 9 innings. It was fucking dominant against Baltimore. And he doesn't win complete games. Why? Because Lucas Giolito throws 5 innings, 1 earned, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. The game gets rained out and he gets a complete game. It's bullshit. It is bullshit. This is at least the 4th time this year that I can point to a complete game and go, that one's bullshit. And it's weather related. I get, the example that was given to me was, well, if a guy hits a fly ball and the outfielder knocks it over the wall, that's a home run and it shouldn't count. That is not an apples to apples comparison. That is baseball players affecting a baseball game. This is not that. This is Mother Nature. You want to give me the example of a wind-assisted home run? Fine. And there are probably hundreds of examples of wind-assisted home runs. But it does not affect a single category where it is so incredibly rare. Give us quality starts. Rant over. For Chris on his bench, he went 8 for 34. The 8 for 34, I apparently decided to not calculate batting average. That's a 235 batting average, 4 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 7 walks, and 7 strikeouts. He dropped Ender Inciarte for Jason Hayward, and then Jason Hayward for Hunter Pence. You're riding hot outfielder. I get it. Inciarte went on the DL with his back issue, hasn't been playing well. That's why they called up Austin Riley. Jason Hayward was nice when he was hitting. Now he's not, and I don't blame you for dropping him. For Nick, 14 for 42. That's a 333 batting average, 10 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts, and an error. For Nick, it's disappointing to see Franmil Reyes continue to just die on his bench because his outfield is Rosario, McCutchen, and Bryant, and Puig, and Springer. Like, you've got way too many dudes in the outfield that will play over him. You know, he went 2 for 4 with a homer and a double on Tuesday, and Puig went 0 for 3 in right field. Logan Forsythe also had a good day on your bench, 3 for 4, 2 doubles, a triple, and 2 RBIs, while Ryan McMahon didn't play at second base. You know, the triple especially hurts because he lost triples by 1. You know, and then he dropped Logan Forsythe on Tuesday for Scott Kingery, who he dropped for Nick Margevicius on Thursday. Sorry, on Saturday. You know, it sucks to see that kind of offensive production from a guy like Franmil Reyes, who for the season has 15 homers and 27 RBIs. I would love to. You know what? I'm going to look right now and see how many homers he actually has on Nick's team. Franmil Reyes has 8 of those 15 homers on his team. And of the 27 RBIs he has 15. So you've missed out on half the home runs and almost half the RBIs. It sucks. That really sucks. You know, that's the danger of having 6 starting outfielders, really. You know, and especially with Yasiel Puig, who's not playing well. You know, he's only hitting 206. He hit 083 this week for you. You know, when you're playing him over Franmil Reyes, it just looks foolish. Key players for the week for Chris, Eduardo Escobar has been a guy who's carried this team in many ways. A 296 batting average, a 321 on base, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, 2 triples on the week, a double and 7 runs scored. Winning triples 3-2 and getting 2 of them out of one guy is huge. Dan Vogelbach, who I kind of regret dropping, seeing this line this week. He had a 333 average, a 429 on base percentage, 4 homers and 9 RBIs. I mean, the guy just wasn't hitting for me, and I dropped him on the 11th. And from the 13th through today, he has 5 homers. I mean, he's back up to 14 homers and 30 RBIs with a 270 average. Like, I tried to trade him. I tried really hard to trade him, and nobody would want him. And he wasn't hitting, and his average was down to like 240. So I had to cut bait. And there he is, hitting fucking well for another team. Josh Phegley had a good week. 353 average, 389 on base, a homer, and 4 RBIs. It looks like Chris is kind of, you know, surrounded his team with cast-offs from other teams that did well. Phegley is another one who did well for Frank, James, McCloskey, and Jason for a period of time before finally landing on this team. It's only a matter of time before he gets dropped again, right? Like, this guy is getting no respect from our league. He's hitting 281. Like, for a position as weak as catcher, that guy deserves to be rostered, and he deserves to stick on someone's roster. Pitching wise, Steven Strasburg, 8 innings, 1 earned. Of course, it's going to probably. Oh, it was against the Cubs. I thought it was going to be against the Mets. It was against the Cubs. He gave up 1 solo home run. Lucas Giolito, as I mentioned, the complete game is just absolutely maddening, but he continues to pitch well. I think the kid's finally putting it together after all this time. You know, he did have only 1 earned run. It was 4 strikeouts with 2 walks. And Alex Colomé, the closer in Chicago, 2 relief appearances, 2 saves, didn't give up a walk or didn't give up a base runner. For Nick, Andrew McCutchen had a great week. A 269 average, a homer, 5 RBIs, a double, and 3 runs scored with 4 walks. That's a 269 average, a 367 on base. Chris Bryant, 346 average, 414 on base, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 5 runs, and a double. And George Springer, before, sort of suffering this back thing, 261 average, 370 on base, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a triple, and 6 runs scored. Pitching wise, again, it's Shane Bieber. That's a fantastic start. You can't really beat that. 21, and he had a 2-start week. His other start wasn't great as far as earned runs are concerned. He gave up 4 homers in that start. It was against the White Sox. But even with that, 21 strikeouts, over 15 and a third, a win, a loss, a complete game. He did give up 4 homers and has a 293 average with an 0.78 whip. But by far and away, that dude had the best start of the week. Marcus Stroman, 6 innings, 1 earned, and a no decision against Chicago with 6 strikeouts. And Craig Stammen gave him 3 shutout relief appearances. It was an interesting matchup, if for no other reason than the complete game gimmick. And that will bring me to best and worst. Oh, it's long again. It's over an hour and 10 minutes. Best start of the week goes to Shane Bieber's complete game shutout with 15 strikeouts. Chris Sale had 17 strikeouts on Ben's bench. That's kind of funny. Best weekly performance offensively will be Josh Bell. The 407, 484 with 6 runs, a double, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Worst starts of the week, Miles Mikolas for Barry. An inning and a third, 7 earned. It's a 47.25 ERA and a 6.75 whip. And, of course, the aforementioned Ivan Nova fucking start. 3 innings, 8 earned, 9 runs total, 4 walks, a strikeout, 3 homers. That's a 24 ERA and a 4 whip. Stop streaming Ivan Nova. Stop it. Just fucking stop it. When you think he's going to have a good start, he won't. I promise. Worst weekly performance from a top 2-round player. That's going to go to Jose Ramirez. A 130 batting average, a 231 on base. 2 runs, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 steals, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, and 2 errors. It's also going to go to Paul Goldschmidt, a 111 batting average, 4 runs, an RBI, 8 walks. So that gives him a 385 on base, which is nice, but 8 strikeouts along with it. And Jake DeGrom had a bad outing, 5 innings, a loss, a homer, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, a 10.80 ERA, and a 1.80 whip. I'm exhausted, but I got this out 1 day late. I should have next week much better. My deepest apologies if I missed anything. Please let me know about it. Thank you guys for being patient with me. I'm going to go to bed now. Have a good week.